Alright, it looks like I'm making a video. Yay. So anyway, I did an interview, whatever it was today, debate. It really wasn't a debate on antinatalism. It was just a debate on this vague idea that somehow we'll never have enough information to draw any conclusions about anything, except that we should just keep doing everything that we've been doing because we have enough information to do that. So, anything that nature says do, we can still do because we don't need any more information to know it's the right thing. Like having kids. Don't have to think about it, don't have to worry about it because the default is the aggressive action of just making more people. And if we found out through information that you can't have unsustainable population growth or some other thing, well, we still wouldn't have enough information. No matter how much information we have, it's never enough information. So anyway, it's just an argument about religion and whether we ever have enough information to, say, convict somebody of a crime or make any kind of judgment about whether a behavior is reasonable or decent or thoughtful even. So anyway, so in the debate, I thought I was rather patient. For 20 minutes, I put up with this crap of just ignore the argument I make and just keep saying, well, what about the UFOs? And, what about some kind of magical, maybe fairy godmothers are real or something, and maybe they could come out and save the day. And just, there was just no... If this was discussing antinatalism, I couldn't find the subject in the conversation anywhere except in what I was saying. So anyway, so you should listen to my first 20 minutes and you'll see I was very patient, and then I just said, fuck this. And I knew going in this wasn't a good idea because, in my opinion, this Logan guy is just a attention whore. Doesn't even have a real personality. He's just a cliche. All the cliche mannerisms and cliche eye candy. Of look at me. I'm different on purpose. Just I knew it was going to be a bad idea. And let's understand, this guy didn't know me from anybody. I don't know him from anybody. Absolutely no reason to really have an in-person conversation, because clearly I've made tons of arguments in videos. I don't need to make them to people in person. I mean, I'm really not doing the personal trainer. He's a personal trainer, I guess. I'm not. I don't give personal tutoring in reality. I make videos. But anyway, so yeah, it was just, if you don't debate these people, then they claim some sort of victory, and but like I said, if you debate them, there's no winning because they're not on the subject. So it was, just generally speaking, probably was a bad idea. So anyway, I thought it was kind of a funny place. I paused. So in the end, it was just basically, yeah, get what you deserve, you glib fuckers, and I got the hell out of there. So we'll continue from there.
These are ad homs.
Reckless puke. Oh, that's not an argument. You're a glib, reckless puke. Look at you,
Yeah, he's basically saying, oh, that's an ad hom. No, calling you an asshole is a contention of mine. It's one of my arguments. You're an ignorant, thoughtless, reckless, stupid, imbecile. You're a waste of people's times. You're a heckler. You're a troll. You're doing this as some sort of entertainment. You don't give a shit about anything. You're a waste of an intelligent person's time. Valuable time.
Jackass, you can't.
YouTube is pausing me. Come on, YouTube.
Can't address anybody with a fucking mature response. Why are you wearing sunglasses at 12 noon?
I think so far the only person who hasn't been mature is you, because this guy, you've just been jumping in. You've just been jumping in and not even letting him finish.
Yeah, well, I'm jumping in because I'm saying goodbye. Yes, but yes, continue.
Oftentimes,
He's not
and he
making
hasn't
a
interrupted
fucking
you yet at all.
argument. He's making the argument of a fucking 10-year-old. These aren't arguments.
He's trying to understand your position.
He hasn't. I'm not here to explain my position. He wanted to debate. That means he's supposed to know something about biology. He's supposed to know something about science. He's supposed to know that religion is retarded.
Yes, really. I mean, the very idea that the first question he asks an antinatalist, oh, so you don't believe in God? Like it would be possible to come up with some creating God who, as part of the dogma of the religion, you would be anti the creation. So the God would actually be against his own creation. I've never heard of such a religion. Doesn't sound very plausible. I mean, that's how stupid this was. This is how big a waste of time it is. Obviously, if you believe in God, antinatalism isn't for you. Okay? And maybe you should analyze that that delusion you have. But I mean, clearly, it's an idiotic question, especially since all my videos now have donotgod.com right at the bottom of the video. Why is somebody asking me if I believe in God? That's what I mean by, what's the point? You don't debate people who are this unprepared.
You can't come to the fucking floor having any knowledge about anything except how to be a cartoon character. What the fuck would I waste my time with this nonsense for? Fuck you.
Well, you got no evidence for anything.
Exactly.
You have no evidence.
Right, so there's no evidence for the fact that nature kills brutally and quickly most of the organisms it creates. We have no evidence for that. We have no evidence that our origin is evolution when there's just volumes and volumes of evidence. We have clear evidence that silly people make up silly stories and they're silly. Okay, the three bears, Goldilocks. We go through all the little fables and all the little myths of human history, and they're all just pretty much, they have the signature of silly written all over them. And he says there's no evidence. No, there's a ton of evidence. Ugh, what an asshole.
You're heated up. You're heated up. Oh, he left.
Man, that's really a shame, because I actually had many things that I wanted to ask him.
I didn't even get a chance.
What? You wanted to just keep asking me whether I believed in God. You wanted to keep asking me why aren't you waiting to make a decision until we have absolute proof that the universe is sterile? Why are you not making any decisions? I mean, it was just so stupid.
Chance to insult him back, and he left.
Yeah, but you're the better man for it. So for the audience.
Oh, I mean, to be clear, he's a boy. He's not a man. You know, and he's barely that. He's a cartoon character. He's not anime. He's somewhere between anime and Rugrats or something.
I know a lot of people are there. I would actually like to state my position on it. And Logan, I think you have some stuff that you still wanted to say. So if anybody wants to stick around, I'm happy to kind of discuss this without inmendham.
Very great. You mean you can make a video on this subject where you actually make an intelligent argument? Oh, yeah, that'll be interesting. Let's see if you can handle it.
And maybe he'll, rage comment afterward on the video. But that was incredibly immature. I was actually looking forward to talking to him. And
well, then you should have had the debate, asshole. Instead of letting the cartoon character just harass me with this stupid God argument through the whole conversation. Again, it wasn't debate faith. If the point was I have to prove to you God is a silly, made-up idea, that there's absolutely not one shred of evidence indicating that there's any creator to the universe or any parts of the universe. There's absolutely no evidence, and you're telling me I have to be agnostic. That somehow I have to be agnostic on every fairy story that anyone's ever made up in the history of mankind because I can't prove their silly thing never happened. Of course I don't have to do that. Of course it's a silly argument, and I spent 20 minutes having to say that over and over again. Fuck you.
This was actually very disappointing.
Yeah, I had some follow-up points, but
you didn't have any points. No, you had 1 point from the beginning of the conversation. Where's your proof? You didn't want to hear the reasoning for my perception. I explain the reasoning. There's no evidence of a creator. The universe is a cold, black, hard place. Biology is just nasty as fuck. The idea of evolution is gladiator war, and it's not worth the price of admission. You have to be an asshole to think it's fun. I made the point clear. I said, would you kill the 9, well, let's call them 8, the 8 lion cubs to have the mature mating? Would you? You didn't answer the question, but I think the answer is no, you wouldn't if you had to do it. If you had to do it, you'd say it wouldn't be worth it. I pointed out that human beings a few thousand years ago watched 8 of their 10 kids die. You'd do that? You'd say that's just a stroll through the park. That's fun. No problem. I like watching my children die. I made it clear why I'm an antinatalist. You didn't counter-argue a single one of those points except to say, how do you know there's not magic unicorn happy juice somewhere and everything will be okay?
I just wanted to know what kind of evidence that he had that there's no life anywhere in the universe.
Again, it's not even, how the fuck, it's not even a rational connection to whether or not we need to do something about this planet's mess. And I mean, again, getting into the physics of how impossible it would be to fix somebody else's problem in the universe, there's just physical reasons why that can't happen. So even if they were in big trouble, their house is in fire and it's sinking in molten lava, right? We still can't come to the rescue. So it's kind of a moot point. That isn't the subject of antinatalism. Extraterrestrial life in the universe isn't the subject. But the point is, I addressed the point. I pointed out how there's absolutely no evidence that life happens. There's exactly the opposite evidence, that it doesn't happen. That certain things only happen once in 4 billion years.
And how does he know all this stuff? He didn't really provide evidence.
Well, again, so I didn't provide evidence even though I did. I can't give you a fucking high school education. I mean, I can't explain the theory of evolution to you, and I can't point out to you how it actually works in a debate. You're supposed to come with some knowledge, idiot. I'm not supposed to have to educate you.
Well, his evidence is a lack of evidence to the contrary. And that's actually a very dangerous thing to assume. Logan and I were talking.
Right, so it's dangerous to assume that the 3 bears were a fable. That's what he just said. I know, I don't think that's dangerous at all. Where is that ever dangerous? To take something that has no evidence supporting it and saying that's bullshit. Why would I pay any attention to a notion in a head that has nothing to do with anything but fantasy? I can create all kinds of fantasies about events and happenings. They're complete distortions and perversions of reality. There's no evidence that it actually happened. That the piece of paper here is made out of Jews or something. Killed and murdered Jews. There's no evidence that happened. I could make up a story that that's where this paper came from, but it would just be a fucking story. Now, how is it dangerous for me not to believe the completely unevidenced fake story? So again, another cliche. Oh, that's dangerous, slippery slope once you start denying fables. No, it's not a slippery slope. That's called reasoning.
Before we started about the Black Swan as a concept. And if anybody hasn't read that book, I would recommend it. It's written by a guy called Nassim Taleb. And he starts off the book by telling a story about how up until whatever it was, I don't know, the white colonialists went to Australia, they had assumed and just known for a fact that all swans are white. Like mature.
So again, this has absolutely nothing to do with any of the specific arguments. None of my arguments against something is there some doubt that there is really a God. There's absolutely no reason to believe there is any God. There's no reason, zero reason. And again, he's saying, You have to be agnostic. No, you don't have to be. It's silly to be agnostic. Silly.
First ones are white. And they base that fact on the fact that you've seen like tens and thousands or however many of them all your life, and every single one of them is white. So you have no evidence to the contrary that there's a black one. And in Australia, they actually have black swans. And when the white people went down there and they saw that, it was this kind of like shocking thing.
And again, is this some sort of question about whether or not it's a possibility that there could be an 8-foot tall human on Earth? We're not arguing about something plausible that has some sort of reasoning where you could say, oh yeah, well, if there could be a 7-foot tall man, there could be an 8-foot, yeah, maybe. All right. That's not this question. The question's about where's the origin of the story? Is the origin of the story in complete fantasy based on no real event or evidence? None. Zero evidence. So we have no reason to believe there is empty space and God. You know, because we know that empty space is just empty space, we can't rely on the fact that, oh, well, you can't rule out God. Yeah, I can.
And this is exactly his argument. It's like, I haven't seen a black swan yet, therefore I know for 100% certainty, or at the very least, like, certainly.
So again, by this logic, I'm supposed to give the benefit of the doubt to any preposterous fable ever invented in a human mind. Any Horton hears a who, so I should think there's hoobies on dust specks because somebody could imagine it. I should therefore say, oh, well, I can't act because there might be hoobies. I can't wash my desk because there could be hoobies all over it and I'd be killing them. Is there any reason to believe that? No. Is there any reason to not to do what I need to do? Now, I gave an example in here. You know, I pointed out how, by your logic, no criminal gets convicted and nobody ever saves anybody and nobody ever does a damn thing because everybody's frozen by their inability to know what reality is. That's the world you want to live in. You're talking about who's dangerous? You're dangerous, douchebag.
Enough that it's worth killing everything on the earth because I haven't seen one yet. So I don't know that God exists. I haven't seen any proof that he does. And okay, that's fine. Like, there is no proof. And Logan's point, if I understand it right, is simply that, yeah, you don't...
It appears to be your point, too. So don't hide behind Logan. You're the one defending it. You're saying this black swan idea somehow has something to teach somebody. It has nothing to teach anybody except how to become retarded. If you go looking for something that there's no reason to go looking for it, you're wasting your fucking time.
Don't have any proof to the contrary either, so you can't state that it's true. Is that right? Yeah.
Exactly. What's I mean, I know this isn't an argument, but why is that guy so angry? What's up with that?
Well,
yeah, what's up with that guy? Right, he's talking about things being tortured and killed. All right, little lion cubs spending, days, their parents get killed and they spend days roaming around, afraid, scared, hungry, and then they finally get killed by hyenas in some brutal way. What am I upset about? Get what you deserve, you glib fucks. I mean, you can't get eaten by aliens soon enough to satisfy me.
I think he explained why he was angry. His parents admitted to him that they didn't even think.
Oh, what a retard! What a retard! I mean, really, this is going now. It's going to get retarded. Just because I pointed out how, look, I got my parents to admit they had no good reason to have kids. All right, and they didn't consider the downside risk. All they did was to say, "Oh yeah, everybody does it. We'll do it." It's just a silly thing people do because they didn't give it any. And that's what I'm calling you glib and reckless. I'm pointing out this is how what you do. You're not doing any black swan thing. You're not having kids because you think there's a God and he's going to come save the day and take care of your kids. You're just doing it because you want to. And you're too lazy to think about what a responsibility it is. You fucking piece of shit.
About why they would want to have him. That's the answer. That's why he's angry.
Yeah, right. So why does Funny Boy have whatever orange sunglasses on and his well manicured little cappy turned backwards. Well, it's not even backwards, right? It's sideways, and he's wearing a hoodie. Why is he doing that? You know, was he raped by a rapper or something? Is it some kind of whatever urban psychological brainwashing?
It's absurd. It's absurd.
It's sad.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I wanted to. It's too bad you didn't get to say your points because, like, I mean,
oh yeah, it's like, what are you gonna do? I mean, it's not like you could make a video and make your points, your black swan bullshit that we should all believe in fables because we can't rule them out absolutely. Oh yeah, you couldn't make that point in a video. No, you only know how to make videos about shoving seeds up your ass.
This is the thing about, like, his viewers, right? Like, he's calling me a clown. I'm sitting over here being totally, like, I didn't rape.
Like being totally like a valley girl, like totally like whatever, like whatever, totally a cartoon character, like dude, broy, like.
Is my voice. I had decent questions. I didn't even get to the arguments. I was just.
I had decent questions. Are you an atheist is not a decent question, retard. You know, it's an indecent question to ask somebody who's got the words "do not God" under his name.
That's the answer. That's why he's angry.
Yeah, move it up a little.
That's a bad. And then they have some good that they have, like most
okay,
people.
let's go back a little. Play. Play. Play, YouTube.
Like, I guess the book on antinatalism. And I did a bunch of research on him and kind of tried to figure out his logic. And for anybody who hasn't, checked into it, like, I hope I'm summarizing it correctly. This is why I actually wanted to ask him if this is the way he understands it too. The case that he makes is that, on the one hand, you have the person who exists, and this person will inevitably experience some suffering and pain in their life.
Right. So this is the asymmetry argument, right? So I spent 20 minutes, okay, arguing with this idiot, and nothing even close to that argument showed up. And so why did I have any hope that's where you're going to get to eventually? Because you weren't going to get there. And anyway, it's not the whole argument. I made the arguments. Okay, the imposition argument is clear. You say you have enough black swan information to take the responsibility to create a living thing, that you can play Dr. Frankenstein. Not only are you a competent doctor and you know what you're doing, but you have the insurance policy that can take care of any problem. You have some way to fix all the pain and suffering that could possibly be caused. You're the one saying you have all the answers, and that you have sufficient evidence that you're bestowed with this right, and that you passed the test. And what was the test? Oh, you have reproductive organs. That was the test, right? You have no competence. You've demonstrated no skill. You've demonstrated no power or to control the mess you could make. You're just a reckless cunt who imposes.
Because no life is perfect. Nobody has no suffering. So that's a bad. And then they have some good that they have, like most people at least have some positive in their life, some happiness and joy, then that's a positive. So you have kind of like a negative and you have a positive. On the other hand, you got the person who never existed. And so they never experienced any pain, never experienced any suffering. So that is a net good, because they didn't experience the pain.
Right. The Martians are winning. That's the truth, because they're not losing. So they don't have any Olympic champions holding up their gold medal and then a bunch of thousands of losers who are crying. Yeah, they don't have any of those problems. And they're better for it.
And then they say that the fact that they don't get to experience any joy is because they don't actually exist. That means that's a net neutral, because like there was nobody to miss not having the joy. And my comment to this is that it's a logical fallacy. You're using the one hand to say, like, the person doesn't exist, therefore there's...
So again, prevention isn't a real thing. So just another person pretending that somehow if you prevent something, the only way you can prove you prevented it is to make the negative thing happen and then prevent it. You can't prevent it and let it happen. Prevention is a real thing. Yes, it will never be experienced by somebody. Somebody won't experience the prevention of their suffering in the circumstance where they don't exist. But the fact that it was prevented is a fact nonetheless. So again, you can't pretend prevention doesn't mean anything, because of course it does. If you choose to humanely kill yourself, or you're responsible for somebody who has signed a living will saying don't resuscitate and don't fix and try to kill me as fast as you can once I'm dead. Don't play around keeping my dead body alive. And so you do this thing, to prevent any chance of extra suffering. And so you say, yes, remove the feeding tube or remove the respirator. You don't recognize that you're doing something positive, even though the person will be dead and they won't experience the benefit of not being tortured some more. You're stopping the torture, right? So to call that a fallacy, that there's no way of preventing unnecessary harm, of course there is. Of course you are preventing unnecessary harm by preventing somebody from living beyond productive utility.
Suffering is good because it like somehow is a positive that they didn't suffer. But by that same token, the fact that they're missing out would be a negative on the positive things. Or if you want to look at it the other way around, it would be the other way. That
well, again, you're denying the very point. They can't miss out on an addiction. So I'm just saying you're just playing word games. They obviously can't miss out if I'm not addicted to heroin, I'm not missing out on the fun of being satisfied by being addicted to heroin. You know what I'm saying? So the logic here is that the pain obviously is more weighty than any possibility of this whatever satisfied addiction could possibly be worth. I brought up heroin addicts in my statement. So again, these are all arguments I brought up, completely ignored.
Both of those should either come out the same as in the case that they existed, or they should come out as both neutral, because you're talking about somebody that never existed. So there is no pain to be experienced. So the fact that it didn't happen isn't a positive. It's just a neutral.
Right. So again, this is as if you could go to the store and pleasure and pain were something you exchanged for. And that's not what we're doing. We're exchanging for hope and desire and addiction. So just understand that you're really not making an exchange where the two things have real value. So if you want to show me this real positive, I'll argue that every single positive is just the elimination of a negative deprivation, a condition of hungry or horny or need that has to come first. A negative condition is created first, and then you feel good having the negative condition removed. So it's just having somebody stop whipping you. So if these were real positives, if I really thought you were having some kind of real positive experience that wasn't made out of your loneliness or out of your deprivation, then you might have something of an argument, but I'd still say the pain way outweighs the pleasure. And again, you don't have any right to be making this decision for somebody else. You have no right to sit there and say, you know the math and it all works out fine. Where's your authority? Where do you get to trump somebody else's possible perception? Again, why can't they be black swans? You're saying you can't be a black swan. I'm saying you have to be a white swan. You have to believe. And if you don't believe, it's your fault. Okay, yeah, if you think it's stupid and shitty, that's your problem. No, that's your problem. You're the one responsible for it. You caused it. You're responsible.
Like the fact that the joy didn't happen, it's a net neutral. So on the one hand, where the person didn't exist, the best case outcome is a total neutral. It's a zero. It's a zero sum. There was no positive, no negative. So my argument is that with as bad as the world is, regardless of how bad it is, and regardless of how bad it can get, even if it is getting worse, you still have some good in there.
Right, and again, somehow that means it's all okay. So because you're happy, you can torture 10 people, or you can incarcerate people or enslave people because it gives you pleasure, and your pleasure is always more important than their pain. No, that's not logical.
So you can have like 99% bad, but you might have 1% good. That 1% good is still more than the neutral here, which is like zero. So you have zero.
So again, he's saying 1% good, and we'll just ignore all the suffering prevented. So again, it's just, you know, where's the logic in this? The asymmetry exists. It's a real thing because it's the nature of good and bad is where the problem is. The goods are mostly compensating for a bad. Most of the goods are creating a weapon against a bad thing. I mean, point out to me the goods that aren't fixing a bad. Show me some of those.
Zero here and you have one here. And I would argue, and I think Logan would argue, that most people, anybody who's watching this, you probably have a lot more than 1% good, like, in your life. If you have, like, internet and electricity and, like, clean water.
Oh, yeah, and it's nothing like just being addicted, again. So these aren't just, like, being satisfactions of pre-existing annoyances and harassments where you feel unfulfilled and unappreciated and unsomething or other, and that's the reason why you gained any benefit from something is because it fixed your deprivated condition. Jeez.
And food to eat, like, I mean, you're doing a lot better than most things. So I would, I kind of wanted to ask him about where he would, stand on that. And Logan, I don't know if you want to say anything to that kind of.
He doesn't understand that argument at all. He didn't do any research. He has no clue.
I had my own way I was going to go with that, but yeah, it would have been a lot better to, I don't want to say all my arguments now, but it would have been a lot.
I don't want to say my arguments in the video about the subject. Yeah, right. That makes sense. Not.
A lot better to go on with the debate. I mean, like, here's the thing, too. Like I said, at the very beginning, like, what's your evidence? And to just yell about Santa Claus, like, when I was 4, I knew that Santa Claus didn't exist. Like, that's not an argument.
That's not the argument I made. I pointed out that I didn't believe in Santa Claus, and I don't believe in the Easter Rabbit, and I didn't believe the Flintstones really exist. Why should I waste any time worrying about gods? I don't believe in other cartoon characters. Why should I believe in that one? Gee, was that too elusive for you? I have absolutely no reason to give a God notion any consideration whatsoever because there's absolutely zero sensible, reasonable evidence that a God ever existed or could ever exist. An uncreated creator. It's a silly fucking idea. I have no obligation to give it one iota of respect. None. And I don't give it any.
It's not evidence of nothing. You're just yelling and being crazy. So
You're just being a theist apologist. You're just making rational excuses, rationalizations for people believing in absolute nonsense, being deluded and retarded. And you're saying that's what people should be. Bravo, imbeciles.
And as much as he's saying there's no God, if I understand correctly, again, this antinatalism viewpoint that you're creating the harm by bringing a non-existent person into existence. What is that non-existent person? Are they a soul? Are they a spirit? Like, What are they?
Now, obviously, they're nothing. That's why the whole asymmetry argument was made, you idiot. So, again, what is this crap? You're creating something that wasn't. That's the point. Where do antinatalists indicate they think something was somewhere else before it became alive? It wasn't somewhere else.
They don't exist. You haven't harmed anybody by bringing some living being into existence.
Oh, so again, he's saying life isn't a harm. So even though the thing comes out of the vagina with its skull compressed and crying and not looking very comfortable, he's saying you've done no harm, and the rest of its life will not be a harm. And there will be no reason for him not to think it's a totally delightful existence. Especially if he manages to, let's say, get into the military at 18 and gets killed in a war somewhere. That it would be a perfectly wonderful experience. Maybe have his eyes and, you know, his limbs blown off, and then spend the rest of his life in a cardboard box somewhere going, well, what the fuck did I do? That's not a harm. No, not at all.
Because before that, they didn't exist. So you haven't done any harm just by bringing them into existence. Now, later on...
again, of course you have, because we know bringing them into existence has an implication. That is, they have to be forced out of existence. So first, you're going to force them to die. So by creating them, you're going to force them to have to experience death. And you're saying that's a good time. That's a fun thing. That's a neutral. That's not a bad thing. I mean, this is a ludicrously, you know, vacant argument. Life isn't a harm. It can't be. It's not possible.
They will experience harm, for sure. I mean, everybody experiences harm and pain. But, again, intent matters. And if I understand, again, his position...
Why does intent matter? Why? How does intent fix doing something stupid? Reckless, inconsiderate, rude, impositional. Oh, I didn't intend to rape you. I just intended to stick my penis in your vagina and have a good time. What a pile of shit.
Saying it's immoral to do this because you know that they're going to suffer. But the intent matters. If you get in your car...
Because you don't know what's going to happen is more precisely the argument. You have no way to clean it up if it goes wrong. If it's like a nuclear power plant or something. You just can't fix it. And so why are you doing it? Unless you have a really good reason. You don't have a good reason to do it. What's your good reason to play creator? You don't have a good reason. So why are you imposing the risk without a good reason?
And you know that it's a well-running car. You've maintained it well. There's no, like, problems with it mechanically. You're not drunk. You get in it and you drive. And you have a horrific accident because, I don't know, your tire blows up in a turn and you roll the car and you kill somebody on the sidewalk. That's an accident. You didn't do anything immoral by getting in the car and driving. You have a reasonable...
What? You have an excuse, right? But the fact is that happens to people and it ruins their life. Because for the rest of the life they know, oh, somehow I have to make up for the life I've ruined. It's just a fact. So yeah, it's not my fault, but I was involved enough for it. It's clearly my fault, okay? I'm part of the fault mechanism. And they have to spend the rest of their life feeling really shitty. So you don't think that really happens, asshole? You're just glib. You're just saying, I don't care. I don't care. I will impose. I will force people who will find what I'm doing incredibly unpleasant and offensive. And I will force them because I'm on a joyride. And like I said, you're just on a joyride. Where's your evidence that you have a good purpose? Where's your argument explaining why you need to do this? Why is it necessary for you to impose life, to animate the non-existents and force them to exist? Why do you need to do this? Why is it necessary that it be done? What is your, your necessity? What is the vital, precious thing preserved that you have an excuse to impose harm? What's your excuse?
You know, like he was saying, you have a reasonable doubt to think that you will be fine driving that day because you've checked your car and it's in good condition and blah, 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 and you're not drunk.
No, you have every reason. That's why people shouldn't make all these frivolous trips in their car. Because you have every reason to know that it's an assigned risk every time you get in the automobile. There's a chance some kid will be playing with its little ball and will jump in front of your car. These are real risks. And you're just saying, I don't pay any attention to that. That's not any fun. That's all you're saying. I just don't give a shit. That statistic is not relevant. That's all you're saying. How many pedestrians are killed by cars? You know, yeah, it's not my problem.
And, you know, the same way, like somebody in a developed area of the world where, you know, birth rates are, you know, really good, like in the sense that, you know, you have 100,000 births and, you know, 2 or 3 kids die out of that. Like you have a very
100,000 births and 2 or 3 kids die out of that. Now that's not a realistic statistic anywhere on planet Earth. It's just not. You know, I mean, women still die in childbirth.
good, reasonable doubt that your kid will live to, you know, to maturity. I don't think it's like rolling the dice. It's not like you're doing the same odds as the octopus laying the 10.
Okay, so again, I made the argument that this is a problem with the nature of life on Earth. Again, so his solution is, as long as I can make humans happy, I don't have to worry about all the sentient organisms on the planet. They're not relevant. Because you're not going to fix their circumstance, are you? No, you're not. So this is just more pie in the sky. I'm going to create a perfect world where everybody's happy. Now, he brings up other countries. I'm just saying, we know statistically that the average human being isn't educated. Okay, I mean, 3 or 4 people out of 100 on planet Earth go to college. 3, I think? Maybe less than that. Might just be 2. 2 out of 100. That's the real statistic, idiot. All right? I mean, and then you start talking about how many, you know, at least what, 20, 30, 40% of the human race lives under or on dirt. They either have a dirt roof or a dirt floor. You know, almost half the human population is living like that. Those are real statistics, shithead. That's where this natalism goes.
10,000 eggs or whatever he was saying. He's conflating two things that are not the same. The animals don't have moral agency. We do. There's nothing wrong about...
yeah, exactly. And I'm pointing out how it's retarded moral agency to say, I don't care how much roadkill there is. I don't care how many kids jump in front of my car. I didn't try to kill them, so it's not my problem. Fuck you. And clearly, the way we exist, we are trying to. We're not trying to not cause harm, okay? We're horribly industrialized the concentration camps that animals are thrown into. It's a documented fact of how they're mistreated, and you're just pretending it doesn't exist when it does exist. That's what we've done with our moral agency, is we've made slaves and we've made exploitables. You're talk about the nice privileged white people living in their nicer civilizations. Well, what makes their more comfortable life? Oh, that's right, the exploitation of people in other countries. I mean, you're just such a pig.
A lion eating a zebra. Like, that's what he's supposed to be doing. He doesn't have moral agency.
So he's supposed to be doing it. Why? Because the DNA molecule says so. So these people not only say I should give the benefit of the doubt to the idea that there's a God that created the universe, but somehow I have to think that nature is smart and nature comes up with really good ideas. So I pointed out how I think it's a pretty obvious bad idea to kill 10,000 octopuses to make one. And I think if you had to do it, if you had to be the arbiter of the creation, you had to be the hitman for God, the creator, and you had to actually do the killing. If you had to kill the 8 lion cubs, I don't think you could do it, pussy. So I don't think your principle means a damn thing. It's just talk. If you had to do the actual killing. If I spelled it out to you that half your kids were going to die, and in real terms 2,000 years ago, most of your kids are going to die before they reach maturity, and you're going to have to watch them die, you'd say, I want to play. Yes, give me that ticket. Please, please, please give me that ticket. I can't wait. where I'd say, no, that's the last thing I want to be doing. You can't understand that argument? Do you have a response to that argument? That would be the more interesting thing. Could you actually respond to one argument I actually made? Just one?
So I don't know why he's conflating those things.
If you look at what I did, I didn't even make one argument. All I did was ask questions. Right?
Yeah, no, you asked the same question over and over again. Why do you think your capacity to reason and the facts we have collected are sufficient? And I explained why. We have a lot of information, and the universe isn't a complex mechanism, and either is the origins of the species. It's a very simple blueprint. And the blueprint is kill a ton of stuff to perfect one thing. And you think that's okay. You don't mind making victims.
Right? So it's like the guy got mad at his own answers to questions I was asking him. Like, I wasn't even making arguments.
That's right. You weren't making arguments. You're just sitting there wasting my time. That's what I got mad about, is you forced me to have this retarded debate with your cartoon character, your falsetto existence, nag me into it, and then you come at me with this inanely stupid argument of, how do you think you have enough information to decide not to be a god and create human beings? I'm admitting I don't have enough information, but clearly I have enough information to know I should do that. I should make more humans, because of course that's a good idea. I mean, you're such a hypocrite, a duplicitous, ignorant hypocrite. I mean, to sit there and argue that somehow we don't have enough information to be cautious, but we have plenty of information to be reckless. I mean, it's just retarded. You're the aggressor here, shithead.
Even when he asked me one question about turtles, and I said, I don't know, I never thought about it. I didn't make a single argument, and it's kind of like
right, you didn't make a single counter response to a single thing I said, and yes, and the one golden moment you admitted, oh, I never even thought about it. So you don't even think about the consequences of what life is. You never really thought about the fact that, oh yeah, a lot of stuff has to be harmed and killed to make little pretty birdie. Little pretty birdie doesn't come out of just some magic place, like just flies out of the golden unicorn's anus and everything's wonderful and everything's beautiful. That's right, it's made through a process, and you never even gave it any fucking thought, and you're calling yourself some kind of vegan thing or something, like you're supposed to know something about this subject, and you never gave it any fucking thought at all. You little turd.
I wasn't really I kind of agree, right, that the world is suffering, that there's tons of suffering in the world. My position is I'm not really sure what the answer is yet.
Yeah, I know the answer is have more kids. I know that's certainly the answer. The answer isn't not having kids. I mean, obviously the answer is have more kids. Clearly, nobody should be talking about having less kids. I mean, this is retarded. You clearly think there's a default answer, which is just keep doing what we're doing. Everything's working fine, even though it's shit.
So it'd be nice to discuss it or debate it, right? So it's kind of like what I'm thinking is my conclusion would be, like, right now you kind of just have to do what's reasonable. So
and reasonable is have more kids because the DNA molecule says so. And the DNA molecule has a great plan. It will kill most of the ones that are born into the real world. So only through our synthetic manipulation of technology in the privileged countries, so we know in the African nations and all that kind of stuff, we know they're still having 10 kids and watching half of them die. So they should just keep doing that. Because that makes sense. That's smart. That's what you do when you don't know. You have kids. You torture shit. That's always the right answer. Just torture some shit. That'll solve the problem.
Vegans know, like, animal agriculture is wrong, but then they've had discussions further than that go beyond that, like, say, about.
Yeah, it makes no difference, okay? Humans torturing animals and nature torturing animals is torture is the problem. And you imbeciles think that you can fix it with just some sort of magic hope. We'll just hope it away. You can't hope it away.
Animal rights and all these other things, and diet, and those are like future discussions, right? So the first step would be obviously getting everybody on board to get rid of animal agriculture. So if you're going to look at antinatalism,
so again, a tiniest percentage. I mean, it can't be. It's like it's 0.000000001% of the animals being tortured on Earth right now are being tortured in factory farms, and that's just a fact. Right now, I mean, every day, rodents, they live very short lives, tons of attrition, huge attrition. You're not going to fix that with your veganism. You're not going to fix any of that. So this is all just such bullshit. You're not coming to anybody's rescue. I mean, it's a tiny percentage of the problem, and you're saying that's where we should pay our attention. Is let's pay attention to 0.00000000001% of the problem. And you're calling me irrational? Fuck you.
Like, this isn't an argument. This is not an argument against antinatalism. I'm just saying you have to look at what's reasonable. Nobody's going to hop on board and be like, let's nuke the planet.
What's the point of reasonable? The Black Swan argument says reasonable doesn't matter. Okay? No, we have to sit there and embrace all the most preposterous and unreasonable possibilities that one can imagine. And just sit here and say, I can't make a decision because there's nothing, the bounds of reasonable now have been extended into all these dimensions of pure fantasy. So yes, there's no action ever.
Right? Like, good luck convincing everybody to nuke the planet. So what are the steps next?
Yeah, well, good luck what? Converting people to atheism or veganism or any subject. So again, the naysayers always existed. Anybody who's ever created a cause and had anything changed in the world, there was always people saying, well, you're just one person, you can't change anything. And then, well, you're just 10 people, you can't change anything. Well, you're just 100 people, you can't change anything. Fuck you, you fucking naysaying, lazy ass wipe. Fuck you. Get what you deserve, which is to be ground up by the systems you are not willing to fight.
Now that you should be taking? Well, the first things that you should be taking to reduce suffering would be like depopulation, veganism, teaching people about ethics, how to deal with suffering, like
yeah, how to deal with suffering. So he has that answer too. Ugh, preposterous. Just ignore it. That's how most people deal with it. I'll just ignore it as long as it's somebody else's. Fuck you.
Buddhist teachings, like, suffering comes from desire, and getting everybody to try to be happier, and then the more understand.
Oh yeah, right. I mean, again, this stupid example that somehow the people of India have figured it out and they have the right answer when they're living in a fucking shithole. They don't have the right answer. It's another silly story. Jump in a fire so you can exempt yourself from coming back as a cockroach. Oh, great. What a fun little fable that is.
Understanding and knowledge and science you have, the more you can help everything out. And that's what I was trying to get at, is like, we need to figure out things more.
Yeah, right, because we haven't found the magicalness. We need the magical free energy and the magical free morphine and the magical free whatever, blah, blah, blah. We gotta wait for the magic to show up. Ugh, an idiot.
Before you can make a solid conclusion, like, let's nuke the planet. And then on top of that, nobody's...
You asked me, so I answered the question. Yes, that would be the end, okay? The final days done by the final caretakers would be to sanitize the planet. All right? That's the very last day. But obviously there's thousands of days before that in terms of the procedure. And obviously the first part of the procedure is just to talk to people and say, look, you wouldn't impose this on your own cat and dog. You wouldn't want them to unnecessarily suffer, so why are you endorsing unnecessary suffering? There's nothing here we're doing that's necessary, just as the Martians are completely unnecessary, and the Uranians are completely unnecessary, and the Plutonians are completely unnecessary. We're just as unnecessary. We're not vital to the universe. We don't heal its wounds. We don't satisfy its desires. We don't do any of that shit. It's all just a delusion. And so you're causing suffering for a fucking delusion of importance. I pointed that out. I described you as what you are. Okay? You're just programmed maggots. You're a fucking robot in the form of a maggot.
Even going to get on board with that. That was my point.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. And I'm not sure, but I'm reading from the comments here that Inmendham is a vegan. I was kind of pretty certain about that just from watching a bunch of his videos, because he does mention the suffering of animals quite a bit. So I'm fairly certain he is vegan, and some of the people in the comments are actually just confirming that. So
again, irrelevant though. Even if I wasn't, the argument stands. The argument is that, well, I mean, it's unethical to force something else to suffer for your pleasure. That's the basic argument. And it stands. Whether I'm a hypocrite, whether I'm duplicitous, whether I'm a cunt, doesn't matter. But yeah, yes, I am a vegan, but I'm just saying I have made the argument that if somebody shows up with a truckload of roadkill, okay, I'm not going to be opposed to barbecuing it. It's already dead. It doesn't make more harm. I'm for prevention. I don't care about it like it's a religion. I care about it as long as it's causing prevention, it's worth doing. When it stops preventing, then it doesn't matter.
I think he gets a lot of stuff. Like I actually agree with a lot of what he's saying, and he's saying, in some of his videos that I've watched, like he goes into explaining about kind of like what you have as like a moral responsibility to do. From the fact that you do see suffering, and it is our kind of responsibility collectively to go, and individually as well, to go and...
How do you have proof of this responsibility? How can you sit there and agree with an argument where you basically have just said the black swan fable trumps it? I'm not allowed to recognize that swans are white and behave accordingly, because there's this stupid black swan problem that somehow gods exist even though there's no evidence for them. I mean, this is just such bullshit. You're arguing out of both sides of your stupid fucking face.
Try and clean up the mess, to go and try and help people and stop their suffering. And I would wholeheartely agree with that, and to do that for non-sentient animals as well. But again, like somehow saying that like
non-sentient. I guess that was just a mistake you made or something. This is just idiotic. So again, there's nothing special about our separation from most mammals except vocabulary. That's it. We were dumb animals before vocabulary, but we were certainly feeling animals. Do you really think vocabulary made us feel? It's a stupid, idiotic way to think about what's going on. Animals are emotive. They're full of feelings. They're full of the capacity to be tormented. It's just silly to sit there and pretend their feelings matter less.
Nature is somehow, evil or something. I mean, that's like evil is like the...
So again, a word I didn't use. I pointed out how it's fundamentally just as bad as a serial killer. It does exactly the same thing. All right? It rapes, pillages, and kills. What else is there to say? In brutal ways. It harms children in brutal ways. What else does need to, what more do I need to add to that statement? I never said it was evil, that it does it maliciously. I argued that it does it, and that's the system you're defending. idiot. You're saying that system needs to be respected.
The human concept that we have, like, from our moral agency, like we've created that concept. The lion is not doing anything evil by eating the zebra. You know,
he's doing something very, very inefficient, and if he knew better, if he knew he was causing harm, he might not do it. Just like human beings, when they're figure it out, they say, I don't want any part of that. I'd rather starve to death, actually, than sit there and brutalize some organism for my benefit. And the lion would be capable of exactly the same reasoning, and he could figure out, I've been really poorly designed. Gee, this is just awful. This is a horrible circumstance. That would be a rational argument. There's no evil involved in any of this. There's just a recognition that it doesn't work. It doesn't work. It doesn't work. It's inefficient. It's not sufficiently efficient. It's not sufficiently efficient. It's not acceptable as a game to play, like the slavery game or the gladiator arena game. There's lots of the bullfight game, lots of dogfight game, cockfight game. There's lots of games we've decided should be illegal because they're wrong, they're stupid, they're retarded, they're inefficient, they're non-functional, they cause too much harm. That's the simple argument. And you're not making a counter argument that there's not too much harm. You're just pretending harm doesn't matter somehow.
I wouldn't I wouldn't fault the lion for that. And, who knows, like, long term.
And again, just a complete straw man argument. Where did I fault the lion? I faulted the DNA molecule. I faulted the machine, the mechanism. And that's at the core of this thing. That's why this is the subject. The subject is this a game worth an intelligent thing should play? Would an intelligent organism make this game? Would you sit there with your rat maze next to you, and would you watch most of your rats be tormented and harmed and tortured and then killed? Or would you say that's not good enough? They'd have to play a better maze game, or I don't want anything to do with this. I'm not putting money in that machine. That's all I'm asking you to do, is say, yeah, okay, I get it. Let's not feed that machine. If we can't make it better, then we just can't play. And the argument simply is, yeah, there is no other game. Sorry, it's not in the function of the biological mechanism. There is no better game because it's a negative game. It's based on a whip, and there is no carrot. There's just whip and take away whip. But there is no carrot. There's no prize to win here. You're just digging yourself out of the quicksand you should have never been thrown in the first place. And that's the rational truth.
Like, if instead of trying to concentrate on killing all life on Earth, like, maybe, I don't know, like, with technological advancement.
Right. So just some fantasy, again, more hope. Let's just hope the problem away. Hope always fixes everything. Isn't that proven through history, how hope fixes everything? Fuck.
Who knows, maybe at some point you can make, like, the fairy tale of the Zootopia cartoon, as much as inmendham didn't want to believe in fairy tales, like, where the animals all get along and, they eat a plant-based diet. Like, who knows? Like, just like we can evolve.
Who knows? So again, they think this is a realistic possibility. They think they can fix crocodile and lion and parasites and Lyme ticks and they can fix all this stuff, and it can all be just friendly. They think they have a fix. Pathetic. And for what? To do nothing more than, to fight against the possibility that we become like Mars, where absolutely no tears are shed. Nobody in the history of mankind has looked up at the sky and thought about Mars and cried because there's no ticks on it.
And change and get knowledge, and he's talked about this in some of the videos I've watched, where he says, like, humans have brought up their level of understanding through collective knowledge and all this kind of stuff. Like, you just don't know. Going back to the Black Swan example, just because somebody hasn't thought.
So again, it's just more pie in the sky. This is just more, I'm just going to wish and hope it away. All right? Not with anything practical, not being considerate at all to the actual facts that you can't do that. You're never going to make this pig fly. You're just dreaming and wishing the problem away. And yes, that's going to get people harmed. That's not going to help them. That's just going to make more Titanics to sink. You fucking cunt. And why are you doing it? Why? To preserve what? The horror of no torture. Oh my God, how awful.
Up some solutions to the problems on Earth yet doesn't mean that they won't going forward.
Yeah.
So again, there's nothing to learn from history. There's nothing to learn from past behavior. Just keep doing the same thing and we'll hope for the better result. That's all. You know, Einstein's definition of retarded. So yes, just be more, what we need is more retarded thinking where we just pretend everything away. The fairy godmother will show up and she'll make us a pumpkin and some little horses and everything will be all right. La 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 la. Happily ever after. Blah blah blah. Fairy tale crap. God, you suck.
So that's the thing a lot of people do is like they just kind of think that they have animals figured out and they know what's best for them, and like nobody's able to hop inside any animal's brain and actually see how they feel and think.
Oh, amazing. Like we need to. That's like arguing, you know, I don't know what it is to be conscious by being conscious. And I don't know what it is to be reasonably intelligent by being reasonably intelligent. Of course I do. So again, just complete nonsense. There's you're given every capacity to be able to imagine that quite realistically, in understanding that it's, yes, a mixture of feelings and emotions that drive animals. And they're the same kind of things that drove me when I was maybe 4 or 5 years old. Not too smart, just kind of driven by feelings. Yeah, it's perfectly imaginable. So what's the argument again? We're not sitting here saying animals are smart. We have to wait for them to make their own judgment. We know what judgment is. We know how judgment evolves. We know how, by acquiring information, human beings were able to liberate themselves, at least a percentage of the human race, from silly, idiotic Thor ideas of what's controlling the universe, that there's a Thor up there making lightning and thunder. Yeah, we grow out of that crap.
And what they go through during a day, right? So that's obviously a thing that people should have a better understanding of before we start knowing what's best for sea turtles.
All right, so we have to mind meld with all the organisms on Earth before we can make any judgment about how futile their existence is and how pointless their suffering is. Bullshit. Absolute bullshit.
You know.
Yeah. We don't know. We don't know what they think or feel when it comes to these kinds of things. And yeah, I mean, I don't know. Like, I just think for a lot of the videos I've seen where he talks about kind of this like DNA, I think to him, like, the DNA and the evolution is God. Like he's said in several videos.
I mean, obviously it created our consciousness. We wouldn't be conscious without evolution in a DNA molecule. So obviously it's the creator, and I'm mocking it as having no competence. I'm making that clear, that it isn't qualified to play with something so precious. Precious commodities controlled by ignorance. You know, that's not a good idea. You don't let a goldfish babysit your kid.
That I've watched that you know, basically it's this like DNA that's running this like big meat grinder and you know, lab science experiment gone awry. That basically,
in my opinion, a solid, you know, stainless steel metaphor. Just beautiful, shiny metaphor. Couldn't be better. The meat grinder is exactly what it is. A pointless meat grinder.
Basically, it's like torturing all these animals to try and get, you know, evolution to perfect the DNA strand further. And it's like he's attributing some kind.
Again, it's not perfecting it. It's just making this year's model of a gladiator. It's not making some perfect thing. It's not making something magnificent. A crocodile is a big winner in the DNA Olympics. A big winner. It hasn't changed for hundreds of millions of years because you just can't improve on it. It's a beautiful killing machine. And that's the point. The DNA molecule makes monsters. I said it in the debate. Another point you ignored.
Kind of like will or some kind of, I don't know. Yeah, like I guess will or like, a desire.
Straw man all over the place. Nowhere have I ever in my 5,000 videos implied that the DNA has any will, that nature has any will, that evolution is about will, that there's any kind of brain behind the mechanism at all, any kind of knowledge or information. It knows absolutely nothing, and that's the very reason why that's evidence of its lack of qualification. Why should I pay attention to the program written by something with no brain?
Or to the DNA strand, to the evolution. It's exactly like believing in God and thinking that God is putting us through these torments to say that we're going to be.
So again, he says it's exactly like. So understanding evolution, understanding it as a process that has no understanding, there's no intelligence guiding it, there's no intelligence saying, oh, that's a bad idea, don't do that torture thing. Don't put the penis next to the anus, and no, don't do that. Any judgment applied, I mean, it has no capacity to understand the value involved. There's nothing about the evolution that cares about how much torture is created. It's an incidental byproduct of its game. So the game it's playing, the DNA molecules program, has no knowledge of the side effect of conscious torment. It has no capacity, even if it could see it, to understand it. And again, you're going to sit there and straw man me with the argument that somehow that isn't a perfectly rational way to describe the system. Cunt. You're going to call that religion. Fuck you. That's why you deserved my response. Because you're this fucking, you don't give a shit about the truth. To sit there and paraphrase my argument in that manner is disgusting, you weasel. You fucking piece of shit.
Become better people from it.
Yeah, and that's the thing I asked him at first, like the very first question, does God exist? Because it could be,
again, right below my videos, right, for whatever it's been, 6 months. It's right there below my videos. Do not God. And I'm gonna the cartoon character thinks he's showing some respect by showing up, and you're gonna talk about antinatalism, a subject that can't possibly be believed by somebody who believes in a creative God, a God who had intent and intelligence. Not possible to be religious and be an antinatalist realistically. So what the fuck is this bullshit?
A number of things. It's not. I'm not just saying like, oh, God, as in a guy on a cloud, waiting for people to go to heaven, or Santa Claus, whatever he's getting at. It could be anything. It could be,
the DNA strand.
Yeah, it could be the DNA.
Could be what? God is a DNA molecule again. So if you're going to change the word God, which is always associated with an intentional creation, not a mechanism that unintentionally creates. Why would somebody call something that unintentionally creates God? That's a complete abuse of language entirely. It doesn't make any sense at all.
Collective consciousness could be, things that people have not even figured out or thought of yet. Like there's people figuring out things every day.
Yeah, right. No, they're not figuring out things every day. They're really not. They're making things up every day, sure. But what do you think the last really important thing that was invented was? What do you think the last really important discovery was. Frankly, not much has happened since Darwin. All right, well, this is getting long and tedious. All right, one more minute. Go.
And to just assume you know.
Yes, no, I'm not just assuming I know. I'm respecting the fact that we've picked and picked and picked. For 10,000 years, human beings have picked at their existence. They've pushed at it, they've prodded it, they've manipulated, they've melted it, they've done this, they've done that. And there's just no evidence that there's anything here but robot. Okay? Biological robots programmed to be something. All right? Period. That it's just this stupid mechanism of function, forced marched function that has no purpose. It will accomplish nothing except torment a bunch of shit for nothing, for no value in the end, for no more value than you could muster a sense of loss over the lack of the existence of Martians again. Again, the Martians don't exist. You're not saying to yourself, oh my God, the humanities, oh my God, the Martianities. Oh, I can't stand it. It's so horrible. No, you're not doing that because there isn't anything precious missing. There's nothing of value missing. Just ignore that argument over and over and over and over. Rinse and repeat. So maybe it's worth a part 2 and I could read the dopey comments because I'm sure they'll be dopey. So anyway, so maybe we'll do that next time. But again, I could have been more patient, but I'm just saying I did for 20 minutes. And I was waiting for the argument to get to somewhere where we talk about logic and what a logical person does when they realize they're on a planet, okay, that does work this way, that actually does kill most things while they're immature children to create some sort of pageant, some play that the little mature things get to play, all right, that really doesn't accomplish anything. It just satisfies their own delusional notions of accomplishment. It's like basketball players putting basketballs in hoops. It doesn't make the world better. It doesn't cure cancer. It doesn't do anything. It's just because they think it does. And it's just delusions that are driving people. Delusions that it's important that Joe Smucko hits another home run. It's a soap opera, for fuck's sake. And you're torturing shit to make a soap opera. Fuck. Anyway, so till the next time and such and so forth and whatnot. I don't know whether I'll revisit any of this or not, but whatever. We'll see. Fuck. Yeah, that's my statement. The mic volume seems a little low. I hope it's not low in this video, but we'll see. You know, it's always the catch. You can never be sure with this Linux system that every time you load the software, it's going to do exactly the same thing. But anyway, it should be better. It clearly was better in the live thing, just because I did a lot of yelling and it didn't go all bad. You know, still it was quite audible, so that was good. So, yeah, till next time and such. I mean, I'm sorry for anybody, you know, would prefer me to be, you know, David Benatar patient, but I'm just not, and I'll never be that. I hate glib. I hate stupid arguments that have been addressed over and over and over again. I mean, that's part of this also, okay? I mean, fuck. I mean, it's the same shit all over again. And I have a right to find it nauseating to have to go over the same crap, you know, every day. So anyway, till next time and such.